Welcome to Lazy Reviews. I watched a bunch more Michael J. White movies, so that's what I'll be talking about today. I already made one video where I covered a lot of his films, so if you want to see me talking about these movies, you can check out that video if you haven't already. If not, just stay tuned and enjoy what I have to show you in this video. I might have to cut this into two parts just because I watched so many movies that there's so much to talk about that I'm not sure I have the time to do it all in one sitting. If I do, then enjoy. Enjoy the video, enjoy the videos. I just hope that this will be entertaining and insightful for you. Maybe not too insightful. I just hope that this will be entertaining. And I should probably just get started. I think it's very important for me to just let you know that these are not serious, in-depth reviews of every single film I'm talking about. This is just me watching a bunch of Michael J. White movies because I wanted to watch his movies. I wanted to go through his filmography, and not his entire filmography, but much of it. Probably the majority of it at this point. And just see which movies are actually worth watching. Why should you watch them? Why shouldn't you watch them? Why might these movies be something for you? May these just be a waste of your time? That's basically it. Not me going through deep plot analysis, character studies, whatever. Just, is this a good or a bad movie? And why is this a good or bad movie? And that's it. And without further ado, let's get started. And the first movie I'll be talking about is one of the more recent ones. It's Take Back from 2021. And this movie actually not only stars Michael J. White, but also Gillian White, his wife. She's the main lead in this movie. Michael J. White is really taking a backseat. I'm not even sure if that's a good or a bad thing. I do like his character in this movie. Gillian White is also doing quite well in it.
I had just graduated high school. I met this college guy and we ended up talking for hours. He was different than anybody I'd ever met.
So a very quick plot summary. The movie stars Gillian White being this martial artist who has married Michael J. White after Michael J. White's wife passed away from cancer, I think. So they've been together for a few years, 4, I think. Michael J. White has a daughter, and they have a good family dynamic. What I will say is actually the movie is really not good at establishing this. A lot of this story is told in exposition dialogue half an hour or an hour into the movie. So I was really thrown off. I had no idea that she wasn't the mother for the child. A lot of this is not really explained well in the movie, so it's really odd that it's a throwaway line in the middle of the movie. This is something you probably should know at the beginning of the movie to understand this dynamic, this relationship. But no, this is fairly incompetent. So she's a lawyer, she has this company, they're doing quite well. Michael J. White is a stay-at-home dad, or I'm not really sure what he's doing, but he's also a martial artist, just not as good as his wife. One day, while buying a coffee, the coffee owner is harassed by her ex-boyfriend. So Gillian White steps in and beats him up. And this is caught on camera. And she becomes an internet celebrity overnight. She really doesn't like having all this attention on her. She tries to escape the press. People start approaching her. You realize there's something about her past that she's hiding. And then the daughter of Michael J. White is kidnapped. And I don't want to dive too much deeper into the plot. Not exactly because I think this is a movie you should watch, so I don't want to spoil it. I just don't think I really need to. It's about human trafficking, I can say that much. And I can say that the villain is played by Mickey Rourke. Definitely not Mickey Rourke's best performance.
Come see Daddy. Come see Daddy. Come up see Daddy. That's my baby, huh? That's my baby gorilla.
Let me tell you something. This broad, she can suck the chrome off a bumper hitch. You never know, eh?
A lot of the issues with this movie, a lot of it makes no sense. Mickey Rourke really likes small dogs. So he's constantly seen sitting in bed, lying in bed, playing with the dogs, petting them, talking about how the dogs get him laid. And there's this, I think it might be his son, this buff dude who's working for Mickey Rourke, and they have the acting is bad, so there's the relationship with them is not really well established. Mickey Rourke as a character is not very well established. Of course, you understand more of his backstory later on, but he just has these dogs he loves petting. You have scenes of Mickey Rourke lying in bed, keeps watching this news report on repeat while lying in bed and just petting the dogs. And the way he's petting the dogs also looks weird. It's a movie with so many weird decisions. It just feels incompetent in a way. There are some action scenes in it, and Michael J. White does participate in them. Not a lot. He's really not doing a lot in this movie. And I would say if you want to watch a Michael J. White movie, this is not it for you, because this is not really a Michael J. White movie. He's almost not in it. He's playing the role of a nice, supportive, naive dad. It's interesting to see him not be a villain and not be an action hero, just be a concerned dad trying to live his life, dealing with a lot of... Of course, you don't get that from the performance because the movie doesn't really tell you that. but he's dealing with grief of losing his wife, of course, and then raising this child. They could have done so much more with this plot than what they do, because they really don't do anything with it. It's really just not competent.
Just take me home.
There are some other things I want to get into. A lot of the acting is bad. As I said, it's also just really poorly written. I can't really say this without getting into spoiler territory, but there is something with the timeline that really doesn't work. Gillian White, when she's playing this role, is in her 40s. I'm not sure how old she's supposed to be in the movie, but something in the movie takes place 13, 14 years prior to when the movie is set.
14 years ago. Rape victim. Kimberly Johnson.
She supposedly just finished high school.
I had just graduated high school.
There's really something wrong with her age, with the timeline. It's just really incompetently written. So much of it doesn't really make sense. I love the motivation, the character choices. She's accusing Michael J. White of something, or speculating that he would have acted in a certain way, which really doesn't make any sense. She's saying that, oh, if you had known this, you would have left me, which just the short time you get with Michael J. White's character in this movie, you don't get the idea that he would have left her, so it's just all in her head. Honestly, there's just so much bad to say about this movie, and I just want to end it here. Take back, don't watch it. It's not a good movie. So the next movie I'll be talking about is a movie I actually had fairly high expectations for, because it does have quite high ratings on Rotten Tomatoes on IMDb. It has 7 out of 10 on IMDb and also quite decent score on Rotten Tomatoes. And I therefore thought, well, this is probably one of his better movies. And this movie, of course, is Undisputed II from 2006. This is a movie where Michael J. White does play the lead. So a very quick plot summary. Michael J. White is playing a boxer who is no longer at the top of his game, but he's still active. He is in Russia, in Moscow, to do some commercials and to be in a boxing tournament. On the way to the tournament, he is knocked out. The police discover a lot of drugs on him, and he's arrested. Of course, this is a setup. I'm not spoiling much by saying this, but this is a setup by the Russian mob, the people promoting his participation in this tournament, because he's a very good boxer. So there's a lot of money riding on this. So of course they want to earn money investing in this guy, and the best way to do it is by setting up illegal fights in Russian prisons. That apparently makes more sense than making fixed boxing tournaments outside of prison, or I actually don't really understand why this whole plot exists. It's a stupid plot, to be honest. So yes, the plot might be a bit stupid, but he's sent to this prison camp where they tend to incarcerate a lot of foreigners for some reason. And it's also a prison specializing in martial arts and having all these underground fighting tournaments. And these fights, these tournaments, are then broadcast on local TV? I don't know, special access TV, because they're watching it live, but they're watching it live from bars. But it's illegal fights, and it's only for the mob. I'm asking too many questions about this. So yes, the mob is investing in these illegal fights, and they're betting on them. And Michael J. White is not the only foreigner who's been arrested here. There are some other ones who are taking him in. He also gets into trouble with the big guy in the prison, the most prolific boxer or the prolific martial artist in the prison, who's played by Scott Adkins. And he honestly looks quite intimidating. And well, this is a prison movie, and this is a martial arts movie. So lo and behold, the rest of the movie is just fights and things leading up to fights, and things escalating. Michael J. White, of course, doesn't want to fight. He just wants to get out of prison, but he comes to realize that everything is rigged against him, and the only way he can hope to escape prison is through fighting. And he does have a small character arc. He does have to go from being completely self-centered to slowly accept that he's not the only one in the universe, that he can't be a diva, that he actually needs the help of others to get through life, that he needs the help of others to get through prison, and that people can teach him valuable lessons. He goes from being a bit of a self-important narcissist to being more outgoing and a better person all around. So yes, it actually has a character arc. A lot of these Michael J. White movies don't, but this movie has a character arc. This is a low-budget boxing movie, a low-budget martial arts movie. It's not just boxing, they are kicking sometimes. Not always. Again, I don't really understand the rules of the movie. Sometimes they're kicking, sometimes they're not. It's mostly boxing. And wrestling at times as well. What are they fighting? I don't know. Different styles, probably. Is this blood sports in a prison? Actually, it might be. It actually does remind me a bit of blood sports in a prison. Blood sport, not blood sports. One issue is, yes, it's a low-budget movie made in the mid-2000s, meaning it looks awful. It's this very dark gray, sometimes saturated movie, so nothing looks nice. Of course, it is a prison. It is supposed to look gritty, and it does look a bit gritty. Aside from that, it's just not really interesting to look at. Most scenes are just somewhat ugly and uninteresting, unappealing. Of course, this unappealingness does have symbolic effects, symbolic value, thematic value to some of the scenes, especially the fights. And what I will give the movie is, it has some good fights. It's not the best fights, but it has good fights. Not many, actually way too few, but it has at least 2 good fights. And I can give it that. So if you want to watch Michael J. White kick ass, this might be the movie for you. But that's also pretty much the only thing it has going for it. Everything else mostly suck about it. I honestly don't have much more to say about it. I think it's a very mediocre boxing movie, a very mediocre martial arts movie that has the saving grace of having both Scott Adkins and Michael J. White in it. So that's cool. Some pet peeves. So this is supposed to be Russia. It's filmed in Bulgaria. And it's very obvious that it's filmed in Bulgaria because the vast majority of the prison inmates are obviously Bulgarian and not Russian. They look distinctly Bulgarian, and not only that, the writing is in Bulgarian. So when you see writing on the prison, it's Bulgarian, it's not Russian. Something that's supposed to take place in Russia, but very obviously isn't taking place in Russia. It does feel off, and of course, because it's Bulgaria, it's not as cold as maybe the Siberian place they would have wanted to film it in. So they just used filters to make everything look more cold and desolate. Again, another pet peeve of mine, I don't like when movies do that. It's a bit like the meme of, oh, this is the filter we use in Mexico, this is the filter we use in Eastern Europe. And they did this with this movie, that they took a place that is not as desolate as it's supposed to be, and then they use a filter to get out of it. So yes, not the worst movie, but it is a bit ugly. It has a few good fights, but it's not that interesting. You could watch it for if you really like martial arts movies and prison movies. It's not the worst, but it probably will only entertain you mildly. Again, I'm in the minority. I don't think it's worth 7 out of 10, but it is not the worst. You can watch it. I wouldn't really... It's not like Take Back, where I would never recommend you to watch it. This is maybe it will be entertaining. But let's move on. And the next movie is Undercover Brother 2 from 2019. On paper, it looks like this movie is starring Michael J. White. The first 5 minutes or 3 minutes of this movie are amazing. Michael J. White, he's walking around in the best 70s outfit. He's cracking jokes, he is being hilarious, he's having all these hilariously prolonged hand gestures, cracking jokes everywhere, just being overall really cool. Michael J. White has amazing comedic timing and talent, at least with the right script. And the first few minutes of this movie really demonstrate that.
You see my brother? I'm cutting bitches. Down 116.
They really got my expectations up. I thought I was in for maybe a small comedic masterpiece. And then comes his younger brother, who is played by a man I should not name because what I will be saying might be close to libel. His younger brother in this movie is god awful. He is terrible, and 10 minutes into the movie, his younger brother becomes the lead, and Michael J. White is out of the movie for the next hour. Except for a few scenes where he kind of pops up. Meaning, I was fooled to believing I got a Michael J. White movie, when in fact I got this terrible guy instead. He is not funny.
Hot chocolate I smell, man.
He's over the top all the time. He's playing this clumsy, semi-cool, idiotic side character who suddenly becomes the main character. All his jokes are pun-related or are, is this woke related?
I'm gonna need a moment, okay? I'm gonna need a moment. No, I'm gonna step me one time.
And none of it landed. All of the jokes are awful. Of course, he's not the only one. Every single joke in this movie, after Michael J. White is out of it, is not funny.
Did you know America twice elected a black man?
Next thing you're gonna tell me Michael Jackson's the vice president, Prince is secretary of state, and Whitney Houston is first lady, right?
No. Actually, Michael, Whitney, and Prince. Dead.
What?
The main humor in this movie, and it could have worked because I've seen it work in other movies, are basically racism taken to an extreme mixed with woke tendencies. In a way that's supposed to parody and comment and satirize everything. It has been done before, it can work really well.
And after dinner, a classic black and white movie. With the black turned off, of course.
Don't mansplain to us. Look at him. Slack-jawed as if we were nothing more than incredibly hot sex objects here for his mind. Low in pleasure.
Can't seem to move my head. Make him stop. Make him stop.
I guess I should just give you a very quick plot summary, but this movie is all over the place, so even then it's difficult. It starts in 2006 with Michael J. White being a very 70s guy and his younger brother being a very 90s guy. And they are out to catch the man who's leading this white racist organization trying to take over the world. They're about to catch him, and then they're caught in an avalanche. The movie fast forwards 13 years where they are discovered due to global warming, so the avalanche melted.
Right on global warming.
And Michael J. White is in a coma, whereas his younger brother is revitalized. Immediately put on the case to work for this Undercover Brother agency, which is an African-American network operating to fight racism, to fight the crime of white America, or of the wide world committing against minorities, but especially African Americans. And it has a lot of stereotypes, a lot of cliches. Actually, every single person in the movie is a stereotype or cliche, and they're often named after whatever stereotype or cliche they are. We have the satirical guy. Who's that? It's a guy who's just satirical. Nothing he says should be taken seriously.
Sarcastic, brother. It's an honor to meet you. And I'm being totally sincere, even though my voice sounds like I'm not.
Although my face might look like I might punch you in your face.
Not today.
He's awful. He's really awful in this movie. His performance is bad and his jokes are bad. Nothing is good about that guy. You can't get this woman. I think that's something along those lines.
Unattainable sister.
Not unattainable for you.
Because she's a woman who's just too hot to handle. No man can have her. Like, she's too good for everyone. So that's her persona in the movie. That's her entire character. It's just this one-dimensional thing. It has one thing that I do like. That is, the militant brother is a white guy who identifies as African American. I like that as a joke. And I think also his performance in the movie is the best we get aside from Michael J. White.
My brother in the revolution.
I think his performance is actually quite okay in the movie. But honestly, it has so many cliches. And the movie knows it's a cliche. Everything about the movie is a cliche. And as such, it's just not really funny because it's not really playing with cliches. This is a movie that thinks having cliches and pointing out cliches is funny. Or pointing out things in society is funny without joking about it. Oh, this coffee is expensive. Isn't that funny?
I'll have a latte.
Okay.
That'll be $28.
Hey man, $28 for some damn coffee?
Oh, hipsters exist. Isn't that weird? Oh, white people have a savior complex. Isn't that something? The movie doesn't joke about it. It shows you these things, and then that's supposed to be funny on their own. I'm really getting lost in this movie because it's just not good. And I want to move on, but there's still things worth mentioning. I think one of the ideas I liked about the movie, which could have been done much better, it turns out that the criminal organization, the racist organization in the movie, has invented a drug called woke. And when you take woke, you start embracing gender and ethnic equality, animal welfare, all these things. But then the hangover, the after effects of taking the drug is that you start quarreling over minor issues. That all the unity the drug gives you is torn away by intersectional, minor, ridiculous discussions and debates. Again, a joke that could work on paper, but doesn't work in the movie. But what, again, is another joke that works on paper and doesn't work in the movie is that this drug comes to represent how young, white, woke, privileged people want to tell the world how to be woke. It's not subtle. Like, this could have been very well executed in a subtle way, but this movie just has the line, hey, I want to tell African Americans what their problems are. They shouldn't tell me what their problems are. And the problem is when the satire is so in your face, when the political social commentary is so in your face that it has to be delivered in lines of dialogue, it shows you how bad it is or how little it respects its audience intelligence.
What is wrong with those people? I don't know. Why can't they just trust me to know what's best for them?
When you can't make a joke without fleshing it out, without writing it for you, carving it into rock, into your face again and again.
I feel your heteronormative tone.
They soon turn petty, hypersensitive, and ultra-judgmental.
Something is bad about the writing, and that's the problem with the movie. It's just not fun. It's really, really, really not fun. It's really, really, really poorly written. Except, again, for Michael J. White. And he does show up periodically in the movie. And when he does show up, he makes insanely funny jokes. He makes jokes about follow the money and thinking he got that line from the movie Deep Throat. He has a lot of good lines of dialogue. Sadly, when he actually does return at the end of the movie in full force, it still kind of sucks. We get some action scenes that are bad. We don't get Michael J. White magic, especially not the magic the movie gave us to begin with. Just more meta commentary of how different things are. or were in 2006 compared to now. A lot of more, oh, can white people now identify as black people? Like, how is this not weird? Is this not quirky? All this being said, I understand I may not be the target audience for this movie, but I just feel like it's very dumb, and it's not dumb in a fun way. And I already wasted way too much of my breath on this movie, so I just should move. So this next film I'll be talking about is Freaky Deaky from 2012. It is a movie I could probably talk about extensively, but I don't think it's worth it. It is another movie where I disagree with the vast majority of the reviews I found. I think this is a terrible movie. It has more than decent reviews. A lot of people think it's a very clever movie. I think it's a very stupid movie disguising itself as a clever movie. A very poorly written one. Everything is all over the place and it's very difficult to keep track of what's happening. And a movie that's overall just so boring that it was very difficult to stay focused because nothing happens in this movie despite many things happening. I'm not even sure where to start. I guess a brief plot summary is that we follow... It takes place in the mid-70s. We follow... already here is confusing. So we follow a police officer that was a bomb specialist, a part of the bomb squad, but was decommissioned, was thrown out of the force, I think, and then set up a private detective agency, is what I thought. Actually, he's a lawyer, I think, and he takes on a case of a woman who has been no-noed by a big important movie director. Michael J. White is somehow related to this guy, but he's also working for other people. I didn't really understand if he was a bodyguard or also an agent or a security guard. Also hired to be on this case, but for different reasons. But they do cooperate, but sometimes they also do quarrel. The relationship is really difficult to understand. I really tried to, after watching the movie, I just tried to find a plot summary or anything, but this movie doesn't. I couldn't find any plot summary of the movie. I just wanted to know what the fuck was going on in this movie because it's all over the place and I couldn't find any help. So that's also why I refused to watch this movie twice because I really didn't like it. But that's why I also can't really do a big review of it because it's just so confusing. It's so all over the place. It's so poorly written and structured. So they are trying to investigate this crime, but then because someone is trying to bump the movie director, instead of just prosecuting him and investigating the case, they have to defend him, I think. Because that's the only way I can explain why instead of, trying to prosecute him or investigate this allegation by this woman, they just decide to protect him instead. And the people planning these bombs are another director-producer and a star, a woman, a femme fatale who has been in some of these movies. And they're doing it for reasons. If it was insurance money or what it was, but they will get money. I think they will try to, but that doesn't even make sense. They're doing this for money. I don't understand how it will give them money, but they're doing this for money. They're bumping people for money. Maybe revenge as well, but especially money. And that's basically it. There are so many odd decisions in the movie. For example, the very young woman who accuses the producer/director for no-knowing her very quickly just falls into love with the much older detective investigator and even disrupts her own assault case, to sleep with this person and to annoy him. It treats nothing respectfully. Nothing is done with respect to characters. Nothing is done in a believable way in this movie. It's all over the place. And my absolute biggest gripe with this movie is the acting. Christian Slater is playing the bad director who is being involved in these bombings. He is a lunatic, he is a weak-minded man who is just taken in by this femme fatale and does her bidding. There's nothing likable about his character, there's nothing redeemable about his character. He just looks quirky and they think that's enough for him to be presentable. He's not funny, he's terrible in the movie, he's terribly written, he does nothing worth value. He's supposed to be both quirky and funny and cool, but he's nothing. He's terrible in this movie. He's very, very, very bad. I understand why he doesn't have a big acting career anymore, because if this is the performance he gives, he shouldn't have an acting career. And that's not even the worst. This movie has Crispin Glover. Crispin Glover is playing the producer, director who no-knowed this woman. I should also let you know that it's a big question whether he did no-know or didn't no-know. A lot of the comedy comes from him not remembering if he did it or what constitutes a no-no. Like, if both were drunk or if there was no penetration, was it a no-no? This is not funny. It's not funny to have this quirky discussion of when a no-no is a no-no. It could be funny, I guess. I'm not saying this can never be funny. I'm just saying that the way it's done in this movie is not funny at all. It's serious stuff treated without any respect. This was before Me Too, by the way. Just keep that in mind. This movie was made before Me Too. I don't think this movie could get made today. So Crispin Glover is weirdest, creepiest, sleaziest, uncomfortable person. It doesn't make sense that this person is involved in the industry at all because he's not eccentric. He's a creep. He's a weirdo. He doesn't have the capacity to structure any thoughts in the movie, meaning he's completely incompetent. He's a massive idiot. It kind of seems like he's constantly on drugs in the movie, constantly seems dazed. He has no real constructive thoughts in the movie. He has no insights. He's just this dimwit. So how can a dimwit become one of the most influential producers, directors in Hollywood? Insert joke here. I'm not going to insert it myself. But not just that. He's just so creepy. The thing is, he's supposed to have known the person. But the movie then makes us sympathize with him because our protagonists have to protect him against being assassinated, against losing his money, because he's being blackmailed or, they're trying to threaten him into giving them the money. But why are we supposed to sympathize with this person? He's a creep. He's a weirdo. He is uncomfortable to be around. There's nothing nice about this character. I hate every single scene with him. And Crispin Glover, maybe you could argue it's good acting because it makes us hate him so much. If the point was that we had to hate this character so much, that we actually have to protect and follow and sympathize with in the movie, then they did a good job. Or maybe Crispin Glover is just really bad at doing this, but maybe he's an insanely good actor. I just hate his character in this movie. Crispin Glover's character is so awful. He has the creepiest vibes. And I kept thinking, why is this so creepy? Why is something so wrong about this? I think a big problem comes from him being styled after Rodney Alcala, also known as the dating game killer or the dating show killer. He looks like an actual serial killer. He looks like a serial killer. A serial killer who assaulted people and probably no children. That's the guy. That's the guy that decided to base this characters on. That's what this guy looks like in the movie. It's so uncomfortable. It's so poor taste. Could it have been by accident? Maybe, but this is a very well-known serial killer. They would have known how he looked like, unless they're completely stupid, incompetent people. And I don't think they're as stupid and incompetent as they come out as in this movie, because this is such a bad movie. It's just so uncomfortable all around. I think I should end my review of it here. Michael J. White doesn't have a good performance in it. He doesn't have a bad performance. It's just because the movie is so terrible, so terribly written. This is a comedy, but there's nothing funny about it. This is an action movie, but there's no action in it. This is a crime drama, but there's no drama in it. And the crime in it is so stupid that it makes no sense. This is a movie that's all around bad. It's all around awful. It has no redeemable qualities. It's a movie written by people who think they're funny, who think they're quirky, who think they're intelligent, but who are none of it. This is one of the worst movies I've seen in a long time, and it really made me angry. You should really, really, really not watch this movie. It is bad. It is baffling bad. And that's all I have to say about the movie. Don't watch it. It's a waste of your time. The movie is an insult to people who go through these things. It's an insult to good acting. It's an insult to comedy. Insult to writing. Probably also an insult, because this is an adaptation. It's probably also an insult to the source material. So don't watch this movie. Don't give this movie your money or your time. The next movie I'm going to talk about will be a very difficult movie to talk about. There are so many bad things to say about it, and I'm not even sure where to start. Vigilante Diaries from 2016. So this movie is made by the same guy who made Take Back, and once again the movie looks amazing. It's a very, very good looking movie, at least most of the time. There are very good sets in it, very good scenes, very good settings. They probably didn't even have money for the sets, so they just shot very nice places. So the movie looks good. The cinematography aside, there are some practical effects and special effects that are quite bad, but the cinematography is quite competent. It takes place in multiple locations, and for a fact, they at least traveled to 2 different countries to film it. There might have been 2 more, I'm not sure, but at least 2 countries to film this movie. And it has a budget of about $1 million. When I found the budget, I thought this would be a $10 million budget movie. I guess the actors were paid in peanuts. I guess that's the only way you can explain it. The only somewhat famous actor in the movie is Michael J. White. Arguably, it also has Jay from Jay and Silent Bob. I wouldn't call him a famous actor, but he's also in it. He's a recognizable face. Where to start? This movie is essentially The Punisher, but we have Punisher at home. Actually, already then, I'm confused. I don't know what he's supposed to be because of a lot of what's being said in the movie. Oh, sorry, the movie also has Michael Madsen. He's just not in a lot of scenes, but it does have Michael Madsen, who is a well-known face, but I think he might have 4 or 5 minutes of screen time at most in this movie. And the movie starts out with Michael Madsen talking about past events, talking about how all this began 10 years ago. And then we are shown what's probably Iraq. Already then we're seeing action that is at first glance competent, but is actually very stupid, and I'll get to White stupid later on. Right now, just talk about the plot. where these American Special Forces are seemingly double-crossed by Michael J. White, who is one of the villains in the movie. And the movie then fast forwards several years after the lead character, who is the Punisher, or the Vigilante as he's called in this movie. He has the armor and everything. That's why he's just the Punisher, but they made a different character instead of the Punisher. This is around the time the Punisher TV show came out. So, I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that they made the Punisher at a time where the Punisher had a revival. And he has taken on the Armenian gang. He has killed the brother of the leader of the Armenian gang, and therefore the Armenian gang is after him. The Vigilante, he is this broken character who only now lives to destroy what he perceives as corrupt and evil elements in society, meaning the Armenian gang. And the Armenian gang, they do manage to kidnap him. They are torturing him. A lot of the movie doesn't really make sense. There's so many babes in the movie, and it's not that I can't tell the babes apart, but it sometimes seems like they did as much as they could just to introduce as many babes as possible, but didn't really give them any reason for what they're doing, how they're acting. They're just all over the place, and their motivation, which is, okay, I'll get to that later because the writing is so awful. It's confusingly awful. And what we then have is the Vigilante. There is this other group of mercenaries that are hired to save him, but they're not so much hired to save Michael J. White, because Michael J. White, he's followed by Jay from Jay and Silent Bob, and he's playing Jay from Jay and Silent Bob, who is the cameraman filming the killings of Michael J. White so that he can build him a notorious YouTube career. Michael J. White is a vigilante who wants to show his acts to the public and therefore has a cameraman with him. I don't see that as an impossibility, but it does add some logistical issues that make it all a bit quirky when you think about it. And this guy is kidnapped also by the Armenian gang. And then the father of this guy, who's apparently rich, so this weird guy who is just this loser who's filming Michael J. White, is hiring this mercenary company to save Silent Bob, and in the process also Michael J. White. No, it's not Michael J. White, sorry, but the Vigilante. And the Vigilante then kills people. The leader of the Armenian mafia flees to Armenia, and the rest of the movie is, I don't know how long time passes. Again, nothing is told in this movie. This movie is awful. And the rest of the movie is now taking place in Armenia, where they're hunting down the Armenian gang there. There are a lot of double crossing, a lot of motivation that doesn't make sense. And then after being done in Armenia, they go back and hunt down Michael J. White. Only not really. And the movie ends on a really difficult to understand note. As I said, this is a movie that's difficult to review because so much happens in it, but it's so chaotically and poorly written that it's really difficult to understand what happens and why it happens. What I will give the movie credit for, so I said it was filmed in Armenia. I'm quite sure it's filmed on location in Armenia because I've been to Armenia. I recognize a lot of the places. It really looks real. It looks like, oh yeah, this is the street, this is the opera house. Yes, it has to be the opera house in Armenia. They didn't just superimpose them in the background, right? This is obviously Armenian church. They didn't build that as a set. So I'm quite sure it's filmed in Armenia, and I think it's cool. This might be the first American movie I've seen filmed in Armenia. It does add some quality to it. It actually, I thought for a while that maybe the director was Armenian because this movie does really try to promote Armenian culture. And I actually think what has been the case is that the Armenian government probably paid the movie a lot of money to serve as an ad for Armenia, because there are some countries that really actually do this. Some of those lesser known countries are investing a lot of money to attract tourism. They're subsidizing movies or paying movies to be filmed there. They're paying like musicians a lot to perform there, lobbying a lot to have events take place there. And that's definitely, I'm very, very sure that's what Armenia did for this movie, because that's what Armenia has done for a lot of people. And maybe also it was bankrolled by rich Armenians, because America has a lot of rich Armenians. There are a lot of reasons why the movie could have such, not just set in Armenia, but such a focus and being a love letter to Armenian culture, even though they're the bad people. And I think that all that is kind of cool. I think it's interesting to see in the movie. Okay, having all that out of the way, I'll start talking about the movie in detail. There's so much to grasp about this movie. At a first glance, the action is cool, but it isn't. It's one of those movies where the protagonists, who are supposedly elite soldiers, are constantly standing upright in the open, shooting without taking cover, and the enemies are either taking cover or also out in the open, also just standing and shooting at them. So you have special forces walking down the street like this, you actually see a scene where it does this, and it looks so stupid. Nobody's shooting it. Like, they're special forces, don't fucking stand in the open. And there's so many scenes where that happens. Another one where you have a shootout in a parking lot. Protagonist, the vigilante, has a submachine gun that does this, just sweeping the gun back and forth and for some reason actually hitting things. He's hitting opponents that are hiding behind cars and pillows by doing this action. It's so stupid. It has the worst special forces. The most incompetent special forces I've seen in a movie in a very long time. It's worse than like the commando scene where he's walking around with a heavy machine gun shooting people. This movie is even stupid, more stupid than that. I love the scene in Commando, by the way. Don't get me wrong, it's a cool scene, but it's really stupid. This movie is even more stupid. You really have to suspend your disbelief when watching the movie because all of it is so bad. The first second you realize, oh, actually, this is not how action should work. This is not how people fight. The entire movie falls apart. One thing that also made it completely impossible for me to enjoy it as an action movie is that the enemy is too stupid. At the beginning, they're standing in the open, the enemy is not shooting at them. You see, maybe there are also enemies flanking them. There are maybe 10, 15 enemies pointing their guns at them at the same time. If they are shooting, they are missing, even though these people are out in the open. Why is nobody hitting in the movie? Only the good guys can hit when they need to. Bad guys can't hit people in the open. Where is the suspense? Where's the excitement? When the opposition is so poor that they are rendered useless, there's no excitement in the movie. You can't get immersed in any of the fights because there are no stakes. There are no stakes when the enemy is so incompetent. You really can't have such an incompetent movie in an action movie. Except maybe if you're doing Commando. If it's that type of action movie, which this isn't. This is the Punisher type of action movie. But imagine the Punisher if anyone he fought in that weren't able to shoot back or weren't able to hurt him in any single way. It's really, really stupid. And not only that, so you have the people who can't take cover and can't shoot him. It's one of those movies where if something is off screen, it's not happening. So for example, there's one scene where he's walking around and you see a guy with a gun, and instead of shooting his gun at him, which he could, he runs at him instead. And then you see another guy where instead of shooting him, he also takes his large gun and runs at him instead. Like, why are these people wanting to beat up the vigilante instead of just shooting him? These are Iraqi insurgents in the scene, or supposedly Iraqi insurgents. Why are they just not shooting him? Why do they want to fist fight a person when they could easily win the fight by shooting him? Even if they want to capture him alive, they could shoot his legs or something. No, this movie is so stupid. The action is so awful in this movie. It's not the only time. Like, it has every single action scene is like this. Every single action scene is people not doing things when they're supposed to. For example, there is one scene where one of the lead protagonists is sneaking up to a guy and then hitting him over the head. And then after hitting him over the head, he shoots him. If you want to shoot him, why didn't you just shoot him? Why do that whole thing? And it has that where someone is waiting to do something just so they can deliver a one-liner that is really bad. The movie is really poorly written. There's not a single funny line of dialogue in the movie, even though they really, really, really try to be funny and quirky and have one-liners. It doesn't have anything that works. Every single shootout is just awful with no tension because there can't be any tension when you know that there's no threat to any of the protagonists at all in the movie. Maybe the worst scene of all in the movie, there's one point where the vigilante is being shut down by the Armenian crime lord. So remember, the whole reason for him wanting to get rid of the vigilante is because he killed his brother. He really, 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 really wants the vigilante dead and to suffer. So what does he do? He has just shot the vigilante, so he's on the ground. He's obviously not dead. What does the main villain do? He leaves. He leaves to flee the country. So he has a gun. He could have walked over, shot the vigilante right in the head. It's over. The movie is over. But no, this is a movie that's so poorly written and wrote itself into a corner where the villain could have won. The villain could have won some 45 minutes into the movie, but he didn't because he chose not to kill the main protagonist, even though he could. This is how bad the movie is. Movie is really, really bad. Every single decision is bad. I could get into way more detail because, as I said, every single thing about this movie is bad, aside from how it looks. I think the last thing I'll focus on is just how stupid it is in Armenia. The vigilante's girlfriend has been kidnapped by the Armenian crime lord, so they have to chase him down and not kill him because they need to know where he's holding her. So there's a scene shot in the streets of Yerevan, the capital of Armenia, where they're having a car chase. Also, what I will tell you, the streets of Yerevan at night are packed. This is not even late in the evening. This is why there's still an opera or theatrical performance going on, so it might be, 8, 9, 10 p.m.? Yerevan has a very Middle Eastern or Mediterranean feeling to it. The streets are packed with people. There are constant cars. You cannot just drive around. The streets are not empty. They are full of cars. I mean, of course, this is just suspend your disbelief. I can buy that, but to me, that's just something that really bothered me a bit because it really doesn't portray Yerevan in any realistic light. Anyway, there's this car chase through Yerevan. He has to catch the evil guy and interrogate him to realize where he's keeping the girlfriend. And then what happens? He ends up crashing the car. The bad guy ends up crashing the car. the lead guy goes up to him, and as the bad guy's about to die from his car injuries, the vigilante asks him, "So where is my girlfriend?" He looks to his side in an alley, and out of that alley comes his girlfriend. The girlfriend who managed to escape on her own. Yerevan is a big city. Not only is it a big city with around 1 million people living there, but the geography of the city actually means it's very poorly connected. It has a lot of mountains you can't easily get from one part of the city to another. So the pure luck of just happening to be at that one part of the city where the car crashes, where the girlfriend is also at. It's not even a coincidence. It's a divine intervention. It's so stupid. I can't, even if you were somewhat immersed in the movie until this point, anyone who's seen this must think it's stupid. How can you see that scene and think, oh, that's actually clever? It's actually clever that there was a car accident right where the girlfriend happened to be. I really want to yell right now because the movie is so bad. I have neighbors, so I'll not yell, but the movie is just awful. Even though I said it's mostly good to look at, it's just so incompetent. Even a polished turd or a turd shot in a nice way doesn't mean it's no longer a turd. Because this movie is pure garbage. This is an abomination. This is Samurai Cop shot in a better way. I mean, this is really, 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 really bad. I'm astonished at how incompetent this can be. I know I just said that Freaky Deaky is one of the worst movies I've seen in a while. Vigilante Diaries is also one of the worst movies I've seen in a while. They're both really frustratingly bad. Even though I said Take Back is not a good movie, it's not that frustrating. Take Back, for as boring as it is, it's still much better than Vigilante Diaries, because Vigilante Diaries is just all over the place in its stupidity. I'll move on because just don't watch this movie. Michael J. White's performance is the best part of the movie, but it's not good. I mean, it's okay, but the movie doesn't give him anything proper to do other than torture some people. It's not a good movie. It's really, really, really bad. So the next movie I'll be talking about is fortunately a much better movie. Never Back Down 2, The Beatdown, from 2011. This is a movie also not to say much about, because it's just quite a decent movie that is very simple. Yes, sometimes very simple is very good. As we learned from Freaky Deaky, as we learned from Vigilante Diaries, just having a simple premise, having a simple execution can be very effective. So what is Never Back Down 2? So I've also seen the first Never Back Down. Michael J. White is not in it, so I'll not talk about it in this video. But it is a movie about mixed martial arts. The movie follows these 4 young people who all seem to be about college age. One of them is a freshman. It has one character from the previous movie, which is now an organizer of these mixed martial arts events, MMA events, and he's organizing the Beatdown at his school, where he has these different performers who are martial artists and beating each other up. It's a competition, it's a tournament. And it's a universe where mixed martial arts is the coolest thing in the world. There is a scene of a woman saying, oh, all these mixed martial arts, they are the real men. I really want to sleep with all of them. They're the hottest guys around. Nothing is better than mixed martial arts.
These guys are so hot. MMA is what boxing wishes it could be. Oh, I know, right? Ground and pound, baby. These guys could have me any day of the week.
I'm paraphrasing, but that's basically what she's saying. So we live in a world where mixed martial arts is the best thing in the world. So we have 4 different characters that are all quite essential for the plot. There's this one character who is the main character. He's a freshman. I'll not spoil too much by saying that his father is a homosexual who recently came out and therefore left his family. His father is still very much in his life, but there seems to be a problem that he doesn't like his father. It's assumed in the beginning of the movie that he's ashamed of having a homosexual father, that he's homophobic, or that having a homosexual father would somehow make people think there's something wrong with him. And it is something people are, when they hear about it, they do harass him for it. Essentially, he was right in trying to keep it silent, because it is something that keeps, like, he gets bullied. Not that justifies bullying or anything, but that is what happens to him. He is bullied for having a homosexual father. The next character we have is someone who is already training. When the movie begins, he's already training to become a martial artist. He is from a poor background. His father is no longer in the life of the family. His mother is poor and resorts to stripping to earn money. And he has a lot of younger siblings. And he's just trying to raise the family and be the father figure to these children that they don't have themselves. He's a really lovable character. He's a huge guy. He looks intimidating, so it's very nice that they actually gave this very intimidating guy a big heart. He's definitely one of the most lovable characters in the movie. And other characters do end up causing drama and hating each other. He always stays quite clean. So he's a very nice character in the movie. He's very lovable. I do like him. Quite a well-fledged out character. What I will say, all these characters in the movies actually quite complement each other. They are all different personalities that all have their demons and learn how to overcome them or deal with them in their own way while also finding this brotherhood together, this companionship. The third guy is this man who wants it all. He has already been involved. He has been a boxer, but after boxing too much, he gets a retinal detachment. Now, I have a retinal detachment myself. So when the movie started talking about retinal detachment and how this guy doesn't take it seriously, he still wants to fight even though there's a risk of him going blind, I was really invested in the movie, like, holy fuck, this is serious. No, don't do it, man. Don't fight. You'll lose your eye, man. Don't do it. Don't do it. And he just, of course, keeps fighting because it's his choice to fight and risk going blind. That's not his only demon, but that's like his main issue, that he wants to be a martial artist, but essentially he'll go blind if he keeps doing it. And they keep, like, in the movie that there's always this threat that if he's hit in the head too much, he'll go blind. So that's he has this retinal detachment. You actually don't get to know much about his character, but he is kind of a macho guy. He wants to be in boxing or in martial arts for women and fame and money. So I guess he's a vain guy. He's a pseudo-villain throughout much of the movie. There is a big clash between him and the lead protagonist because the lead protagonist gets interested in his girlfriend. That, of course, creates some problems in this dynamic, in this group dynamic. And then the fourth guy is this emo nerd working in a comic book store. Of course, it's a movie nerd, so he's a hunk. He's gorgeous. And he's being hunted down and beaten, and right before being beaten and stabbed, he's helped by Michael J. White and the chunky beefy guy, the one with the poor mother. Because Michael J. White is a former MMA champion who now spends his spare time training these young people. Or actually, he was only training the big guy. He then takes on these other people to train them. And it becomes immediately obvious that the emo will turn bad. Because if there's one thing that movies do, especially movies from this time, is if you have a nerd who's suddenly giving a taste of power, they become assholes, become psychopaths. And that's what happens in the movie. There's essentially a lot I could touch on in this movie, but I think I gave you the big breakdown of the plot. There's a lot of problems with racist cops. It takes place in New Orleans after Katrina, so there's also that comes into the plot. I honestly don't want to say too much more about it. I think it has very, very, very good character arcs. It is very well paced. It has some very good fights. It is all you would expect from a mediocre to good martial arts movie. It's nothing spectacular. It's just a good time. A good time you can have with a bunch of people that you may grow to love. That's not to say that the movie doesn't have problems. There are a lot of conflicts in this group that seem to come out of nowhere. A lot of tension is created out of nowhere and it doesn't necessarily make sense. Some character motivation, some character decisions don't make sense. I mean, it has a few weird issues and quirks, but overall it's just a good movie. It does have Michael J. White kicking ass, but it's not the focus. So if you want a Michael J. White action movie where Michael J. White is the guy kicking ass, this is not really the movie for you. But if you do like martial arts movies that are very run-of-the-mill, but done well, I can fervently recommend Never Back Down 2. I think it's better than the first one, definitely. I think that the whole group dynamic adds a lot to it. It's perfectly paced and overall a good movie. I think you should watch it. I'll move on.
Ground and pound, baby.
And what will I move on to talk about? The sequel, Never Back Down, No Surrender, from 2016. This is a sequel to Never Back Down 2, but one of those sequels that decided to drop the number for reasons. I hate when movies do that. Anyway, so this movie, at the end of the second film, Michael J. White is getting back in the game with the help of this college promoter. And therefore, the third movie shows Michael J. White being back in the game, in the ring, beating people up. And I will say this, whereas the second film almost had nothing with Michael J. White kicking ass, the third film has Michael J. White kicking ass all the time. I'm exaggerating, but it has him kicking ass, and that's good. After he finishes the fight, he meets the big guy from the second film who is also having a boxing career, or a mixed martial arts career. It turns out that this big guy, yes, he is now a famous martial artist, but he's also not a good one. He's falling out of favor with the promoter. He has one last shot, and if he misses it, if he loses, if he backs down, he will probably be out of the game forever. And also, it's shown a lot of character progression since the second movie, because now he's just a womanizer. He's married but constantly sleeps around. He has no interest in putting in a lot of effort or doing his job. He just wants to relax and enjoy life. Now that he's on the top, he has been corrupted by the sweet juice of success, which also means that he's doping himself. The movie is focused around a big tournament in Thailand, where the big guy hires Michael J. White as his personal trainer. And now who's he fighting? So I think one thing that confused me a bit about the plot, in Thailand, it looks like they're preparing for a big tournament of multiple people. And I don't think they are. I just think that the place they're training is where a lot of people are training for different tournaments. But it is a bit confusing because the movie only talks about one fight where everybody is training there to be fighters. So that did confuse me a bit. But yes, so the big guy has to fight another guy who is very, very big. I think one of the big issues with the movie is that whereas the second film really did a lot to flesh out the characters, meaning that we had a lot of motivation to absolutely hate the villain of the movie, but also sympathize with him. This movie gives you a villain, introduces him, says he beat his wife, you see the villain go into a rampage, and then you don't see the villain until the very end of the movie. Whereas, of course, domestic abuse is a very good reason to hate someone. I would have appreciated you having more time to really get invested in this fight. You only get invested in it because you might get invested in the big guy and his career and want to see his life turn around. Arguably, you could say the same for White in the movie. That's the only investment you really get in the movie. There's no real reason to be invested in the final fight, which I think is sad. I think they could have done more to make this interesting. And I honestly don't want to say too much more about it. The movie is a lot about how Michael J. White is fighting his own demons. He is struggling being back in the game. It's taking a big toll on him. He is also quite, not necessarily a conservative man, but he doesn't own a mobile phone. He gets really offended when he is told by a date that she Googled him before they meet up. He has a lot of demons to fight. That ends up him sometimes acting out in the ring. Because he has his approach to fighting, to training is quite old school. There is a joke in it that I kind of like. So we have one big show-off in this dojo, this gym they're training in, who just looks at Michael J. White and says, "Oh, what is this wax on, wax off stuff? This Mr. Miyagi shit over here."
What the hell is this Bruce Lee shit? Oh, it's don't hit back. What's up, Mr. Miyagi? Practicing your wax on, wax off? What do you even call that? Thai bro?
Well, he just makes a lot of allusions to Karate Kid, and of course it ends up with him constantly challenging Michael J. White, who's using these old traditions, and he's fighting this young guy who has all these new techniques. And of course the young guy is completely beaten up. Now, what I really like about this joke, this arc of the joke, is that the name of the bad guy is Cobra. Cobra Kai! It is Karate Kid in this small movie. There's like a small microcosm of Karate Kid references in the movie, and I think that was cute. I mean, there's so much more to say about the movie. I think there are a lot of good twists and turns, a lot of good character development. The big guy has a nice arc in the movie. It actually had quite a few jokes that made me laugh. There's even one transphobic, homophobic joke that made me laugh. I felt a bit guilty for it. It's a ladyboy joke, but I don't know. We can't all be perfect. I did like the joke, I have to admit.
What the fuck?
Honestly, it just has a lot of sweet moments. It is...
You're looking at the new, improved, and totally serious Brody James.
Isaac Cox. Isaac Cox.
A good movie with some really, really, really good fights in it. It does have some problems. It is a bit stupid at times, but I think it's good. I think the second one, I would prefer the second one because of the group dynamic, but the third one has the best fights. The last fight, I will not spoil who it's between, but the last fight is amazing. It is some of the best martial arts I've seen. So if you want to see Michael J. White in his prime, you want to see beefy people beating each other up, this is the movie for you. It's good. Again, quite run-of-the-mill, but a good run-of-the-mill movie. I can recommend it.
These guys can have me any day of the week.
So the next movie I'll talk about is Triple Threat from 2019. And the reason why I'm talking about it next is actually one of the guys having a small role, small cameo in Never Back Down, Never Surrender, is in this movie. It's the guy, I think it's the guy who wants to take pictures with Michael J. White and who's howling in one of the scenes. and he's one of the lead characters in this movie. So it's starring Thai martial artists and then mostly a Chinese-British cast, but also with Scott Adkins and Michael J. White. And it's a joint production between Indonesian, Thai, and British team. The movie starts up in Myanmar, from what I remember, and it shows this mercenary group, this group of soldiers with our leads in it and Michael J. White in it, find this rebel encampment, supposedly to rescue some civilians or some people captured by these people. They shoot up the whole place, they start torturing people, and they free this guy who is revealed to be a massive terrorist, and it's Scott Adkins. And after this happens, they lock up the two Thai protagonists. As they protest against this, they try to blow up everyone, but of course they escape. And the rest of the film now takes place in Bangkok, where this Chinese embassy, where this Chinese lady, this Chinese official, has a bounty on her head, and therefore these mercenaries, now led by Michael J. White and Scott Adkins, are hunting her down, trying to kill her, while our Thai specialists are trying to protect her and keep her safe. And that's basically it. It's a very simple plot. It has very good action. It has some good shootouts. It has some good fight scenes, good martial arts. It has some good character developing scenes, somewhere where we get to learn more about these characters, explore them a bit more, over some humor. The camera work is good. Honestly, it's just overall quite an effective action movie. It's not the best that Indonesia or Thailand has to offer, but it is fine. I think if you want a good action movie, a movie that happens to star Michael J. White amongst so many other people, this would probably be a good movie for you. I can definitely recommend it. Not a big recommendation, but the action was solid, and that's really what you need for a movie like this. It has such a simple premise. It just works. It doesn't work exceedingly well, but it works. And it's honestly all I have to say about this movie. Very easy, quick recommendation, very easy movie to talk about. Let's move on. This next movie might kill me. There's a lot to unpack here. Black Friday 2021. I will go into spoiler territory. Not that there is that much to spoil, but I will spoil things about certain characters in the movie that are relevant for especially talking about it as a Michael J. White movie. When I saw that I would see a movie with both Bruce Campbell and Michael J. White in it, I was hooked. And it started out well. I don't even know if these are practical effects or if they are CGI or a mix, but the effects in this movie generally look amazing. A few times it looks shitty, but mostly it looks amazing. Amazing for such a small budget movie, especially. Very quickly, the plot. It takes place in a toy store on Black Friday. You're following these different people working in the toy store, all with their different backgrounds, of course. And the store opens, and as the store opens, this zombie alien outbreak breaks out. And that's it. Not exactly a siege movie, but the rest of the film takes place in this shop. Simple premise. I like the premise. I like the concept. Okay, that's actually it. That's the plot. Now let's dive into it. It would seem that the movie has two main protagonists. It has this young guy who has to leave his family, not enjoy Thanksgiving with them, to work in this store where he has worked his ass off, thinking, he wants to be recognized. He wants maybe to earn a career in this place. He wants to be the employee of the month, and he feels like nobody's recognizing him. Yeah, his work goes unappreciated, basically. The other lead protagonist is this woman who has also worked there for quite a while. Even though she's quite young, this very capable, almost boss lady of the place. For a while, I actually thought she was the manager, which she isn't. She just has the balls of a manager. Then we have different characters. Some of them are in it for long, some of them are not that long. And then we have Bruce Campbell playing the general manager of the store. And they all have their different quirks. I think one big issue is most of the characters are very one-dimensional. Some are a bit more fleshed out. There is one guy who is this, just to quote the movie, he is this too cool for school guy, a guy who still behaves, he's in his 40s, still behaves as if it's high school. He has these children he's not seeing, and he's hitting on these young girls. But he's also a bit pathetic. He's also has no career. He's working in this toy store and has no future prospects. He's a bit more than one-dimensional. He also ends up sacrificing himself for the good of the group. So at least that is cool. Okay, sure, Bruce Campbell is also playing a very one-dimensional character. He's this creep asshole who himself describes the reason for working in retail is that he can tell people what to do and people have to laugh at his jokes and he can just mistreat people. And he loves it. It seems that he loves it because actually he is a very sorry person who has nothing really to live for. And I do like Bruce Campbell can play that kind of role. I just think this is not really the best role I've seen him in. Far from it. I think he is giving it the most. I don't think he's giving it all, and I could have seen more. There are some stupid decisions revolving around him. This is a difficult movie to talk about because, yes, it is an alien invasion movie. It's a zombie movie where the effects are really good. I mean, the monsters look amazing. They are different types of evolvement or development or whatever. They're growing these almost beaks as mouths. They have their skin all distorted, and to zombify someone else, they're spreading out this slimy web, almost cobweb thing, and then getting into the mouth of the victim, and that corrupts them. Although sometimes it seems that something else actually makes someone become a zombie, which is a bit weird, not that consistent. Also, there seems to be no consistency in why someone becomes different kinds of zombies than others. So yes, it's one of those movies without rules. I don't like that. I want rules in my movies. I want, like, that there's one monster that is way better, way more developed than the rest, way more capable. And you might think, okay, that's the first person who was infected with a zombie virus. But no, it's one of the last people to be affected by it. And one of the oldest and most incapable people. But still, it looks cool. The fights are generally cool. The effects are generally cool. But where the movie fails is everything else. It is a comedy horror. And especially in the first 20 minutes of the movie, it really tries to be a comedy. It really tries hard. And then for the rest of the movie, it mostly forgets it's supposed to be a comedy horror. And not that I have a problem with that, because the humor in this movie is awful. It is really some of the worst comedy I've seen in a very long time. There is this one character who's quickly written out of the movie. Anita, I think she's supposed to be a manager, I'm not really sure. And she just keeps yelling at people. She's a terrible person towards everyone. And you just want her to die. And I think that's one thing that a lot of modern movies don't really get. That in these movies where people die, you do have some people you have to write in a way where you want them to die. Make the audience want them to die. But also you can't have everybody being like that. And this movie has most people are terrible. You can't really root for many people in the movie. The problem is, yes, okay, you want her to die and you want to have a reason for her to die, but you still have so many insufferable scenes. It's also one of those movies that thinks it's funny to have old people saying naughty things.
So more like consensual fuck partners.
It's not funny seeing old people saying naughty things. That stopped being funny 20 years ago, if it ever was funny. It's not just a comedy. I mean, there's so many things to pick up on in this movie that's bad, but it's not just a comedy and so many other things of it, but the editing and the pacing of this movie is all over the place. I often thought I had been missing scenes, just because it often doesn't explain how you get from one place to the other. Someone might be attacked by a zombie in one place, and then the next scene shows them in another place surrounded by people, not showing how it went from one place to the other, from one scene to the next. It has some people being attacked and then magically escaping and then appearing somewhere else, and then there are no more enemies around them. Or zombies appearing from one place in another, suddenly magically. It's just, the geography is all over the place. There is no reasoning behind how anything really happens in the movie. No real reason to explain why the monsters act the way they act or how they should develop. There are no rules in the movie. It's just lazy in that sense. But then you have these good effects. Like, the effects are good. There are some good chases in it. There are some good attacks, monster attacks. And then it has bad things again, like how it has Michael J. White in it. One of the only good things in the movie, and the movie kills him off less than half an hour into the movie. Couldn't they afford him to have him longer? Is it because he's such a capable person that having him in the movie would remove obstacles? And even the way they kill him, they have the goal to have him disappear from screen, hear a yell, and then you see something drip down on the floor. In 99% of movies, it means he's not dead. When you don't see someone die on camera, they normally don't die in movies. This movie, he dies. I kept thinking he would show up at the end, but no, he just dies. You don't see him die. Actually, you don't actually see him die. You see his guts drop on the floor. Such a weird decision. It feels like the people who made this movie somehow knew how to make effects, but hadn't seen other movies and didn't know how movies work. It has people doing random things just because it has to forward the plot. It has to increase kill counts so people do stupid things. It has people just, again, to create tension. They say stupid things and do terrible things, which they definitely shouldn't do at the moment, especially because in earlier scenes they have been shown to be smarter than they suddenly are in that scene. And it's just full of that. This movie is full of shit. That's what I have to say about the movie. It was very frustrating to see a movie with good monster design and some good kills and horror scenes be corrupted by bad writing, bad editing, bad pacing, and terrible comedy. There was so much potential in this, and it was all flushed down the toilet. It's not a good movie. I really wish I could enjoy this more. I was having very high hopes going into this, and it's just not a good movie.
This is bullshit even for you.
There is one more movie I wanted to talk about. It's not really that relevant to bring up. I did come across one short film from Michael J. White called Mortal Kombat Rebirth from, I think, 2012. And it's actually very well made. It's just Michael J. White being this FBI guy who is talking to someone whom you don't know. He's hidden, and then he will be revealed after everything has been presented to him. It's live action, so all these different Mortal Kombat characters doing things like how they're serial killers in real life. And it's honestly just very cool. It's a very cool concept. And then right when you think the movie's about to start, it ends. Because yes, it's a short, but it's a very short. It's less than 10 minutes. So I was really hooked on seeing where this would go, and it doesn't go anywhere. So it's just a cock tease. And therefore, I can't really recommend it to you. I don't know, maybe I can recommend it. It's kind of cool. Maybe watch it. It's
Reptile.
That was a lot of movies. I'm worn out. I've been talking about movies for almost 3 hours now, and I'm still missing something. There is still one movie I haven't brought up, and I wish I had the energy. I wish I had the enthusiasm that this movie deserves, that I hadn't ruined my mood by talking about all these bad movies, that I had exhausted myself yelling and ranting about Freaky Deaky, Black Friday, Vigilante Diaries, because this last movie with Michael J. White is what set all this off. One of my favorite movies of all time, Black Dynamite, 2009. Really, before going into it, I will say that yes, I'm aware that this essentially is not just a blaxploitation film, but a blaxploitation parody, and especially a film that parodies the movies of Rudy Ray Moore. The movie essentially steals from Dolomite, it steals from Human Tornado, and it steals from Disco Godfather. And when I say steal, I mean it actually takes scenes from those movies and recreates them. It's not a problem, but the reason why I'm bringing it up is I watched Black Dynamite maybe 10 times before I watched any of the other blaxploitation movies I just mentioned. To me, Black Dynamite felt very fresh when I watched it. I knew the genre it was parodying, but I didn't know the movies it was borrowing heavily and being heavily inspired by. And I understand if you have seen all those movies and then watch Black Dynamite, it might be more of a tame experience because actually you have seen all these things before, or most of them before. Black Dynamite does have things that definitely are not those other movies, but it does have a lot of scenes taken from them. Of course, it also shows that it's a love letter, so even if you have seen the other movies, you might end up liking Black Dynamite even more than if you hadn't seen them, just because you see how it's actually a love letter to this blaxploitation genre. I'm not even sure what to say about this movie because it's a movie that deserves so much.
So grab onto your seats and hang on tight while I tell you a story about Black Dynamite.
I guess I'll give you very little, because this is a video where I just talk about movies that you should watch or that you shouldn't watch, starring Michael J. White. Black Dynamite is his magnum opus.
Now this is some heavy shit.
Black Dynamite shows his prowess as a martial artist and as a comedic actor. It is because Black Dynamite is so amazingly funny that I don't understand why he's not given more comedy roles, because he excels in them.
Who the hell is interrupting my kung fu?
As I brought up with Undercover Brother 2, the first few minutes where he's the only actor in it before his brother shows up, Michael J. White is amazing. He has insane comedic talent. He's just not normally allowed to shine in the roles. And of course, there are movies where he's supposed to be funny and where he isn't. But I think that's more due to the script and the direction he's given, because he has shown to be a very, very funny guy. I want him in more funny movies. And the older he gets, the less of a martial artist he can be. So just give him more funny roles. He's really good in them. And if you're doubting my words in any way, watch Black Dynamite.
The worst thing about these pushers, getting these children addicted to this new smack, is that these children are orphans. And orphans don't have parents.
I will really not say much about this movie, other than it's insanely quotable. It is taking place in the 70s. Black Dynamite is an ex-special ops Vietnam War veteran who has worked for the CIA.
Freeze turkeys!
Dynamite! Dynamite!
And is now living in the LA ghettos, trying to help his local African-American community fight the man, fight crime, fight drugs, while he's actually also a pimp himself who is insanely good at martial art. And it's just a love letter to the 70s. It is spoofing and making fun of a lot of the things from the 70s, fun of a Richard Nixon, of Chinese kung fu movies, of the Black Panther Party, of the whole blaxploitation genre, of vanity projects, of promiscuous characters, lead protagonists of these movies. It is making fun of all of it, and it's doing it exceedingly well. And I guess I'll not ruin any of your experience with it. Maybe I'll make a dedicated video to Black Dynamite someday. Maybe I won't. Because Black Dynamite is one of the best movies out there, and that's all you need to know before going into it. It's also, one more thing I'll say, it's one of those movies where I have never shown it to anyone who didn't like it. A lot of the movies I really like a lot, other people don't necessarily love them as much as I do, and I definitely don't think that people love Black Dynamite as much as I do, but I never had anyone who had a bad experience with it. I showed it to some people who said, oh yeah, it's a good movie, but I wouldn't watch it again. That's fine, but they enjoyed the time they had with it. So it is one of those movies I can give a very, very, very high recommendation to. Really, if you have any kind of interest or love or passion for not just Michael J. White, but blaxploitation, watch Black Dynamite. For those things, it's as good as it gets. And now I'm totally exhausted. I hope you enjoyed my video. I know that I might have lost the plot a few times, it wears me out talking about bad movies this much. I want to talk about good movies. I want to find good movies to share. I mean, these movies, I didn't know what I was getting into, and I didn't know that so many of them wouldn't be good. It saddens me. It really saddens me that so many of the movies that Michael J. White is in are not good. I really wish that his future career will become excellent, because he deserves it. He has the talent for it. I really hope he gets a bigger breakthrough now in his later years than he has had in his earlier years. Bye.
Innocence to be defended. Black Dynamite will be there, delivering ass whoopings. And I will not hesitate to lay the hammer down on any clown that comes around. Because if they want to fight, they best come see me. I'm Black Dynamite.